Hola, estudiantes. This is Caroline from the Foreign Language Lab at Kent Campus at Florida State College of Jacksonville, and this is you for your Spanish on YouTube. If you remember last time, if you tuned in, that's great. You also noticed that I have a different microphone. I have a headset now, so we can all hear each other better. That's great. This is why I look like a pilot right now. We're all using this microphone just so we can hear each other better. But anyways, if you were here last time, we talked about the difference between ser and estar. Both are two verbs that mean to be, but they're used for completely different situations. With estar, that's used for things that are temporary. Ser is for things that are permanent. And if you remember, I also said that we use the verb ser when we're talking about time. Now, you're probably confused, because if you were not talking about things that are temporary, when you use the verb estar, the verb other than ser, estar, wouldn't time fall into this category? And said, why do you use ser? And when ser is usually used to describe something that's permanent. This confuses a lot of Spanish students, but just know that in Spanish, that's the way it is. It's weird, it's wacky, but it's Spanish. And in Spanish, you're going to use the verb ser that usually talks about things that are permanent to talk about time, which is always changing. So just to clarify, ser is used to talk about time. Now, in Spanish, when you're asking what time it is, you don't literally say, what time is it? You say, what hour is it? So in Spanish, you're going to say, ¿Qué hora es? What hour is it? And you're not going to respond, like we do in English, by saying, it's 4:05, or 4 o'clock, or 4 or 5, or whatever. You're going to respond by saying something completely different. Imagine when you say, ¿Qué hora es? What hour is it? You're asking, how many hours are there on the clock? And you're going to respond by not saying it's 4 o'clock, but instead, you're going to respond by saying there are 4 hours, there are the 4 hours, and whatever minutes are left of the hour. For example, as I record this, the clock here on the computer says that it's 4:05. So I wouldn't say in Spanish it's 4:05. I would say there are the 4 and 5. So I'm asking what hour is it? ¿Qué hora es? And I will respond by saying what means in English, the 4, there are the 4 and the 5. So let's try it. When you say, what time is it? ¿Qué hora es? You're going to answer with, son las 4:05. You're going to respond by son las, how many, like whatever time it is, like whatever hour it is, and how many minutes you have left over. For example, now it's 4:06. Time flies by. I'm going to say, son las 4:06. There are 4 and 6. Now this works, this little method of saying the hours and the minutes works up until you hit past 31. When the clock strikes 4:31 in 25 minutes, I'm not going to say it like this. I'm going to say something different. When it's the number past 30, you get into what I call the menos zone. And if you want, you can sing a little Twilight Zone thing to remind you that you are now in the menos zone. Once you hit past 30, you, mi amigo, you are in the menos zone. And what you do for this is, let's say it's 4:35. What you're going to do is you're going to keep the son las, there are the, you're going to keep the son las, and if it's, you're going to round up to the next nearest hour. So it's 4:35, the next nearest hour is 5, so you're going to round up to 5. And you're going to say son las 5. Now what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, it's 4:35, how many minutes is it until we get to 5 o'clock? It's 25 minutes until we get to 5 o'clock. So we're going to say son las 5 menos 25. Menos means minus. So you're like subtracting how many minutes that are left until you get to that hour. So I'm literally saying there are 5 minus 25. Son las 5 menos 25. So you're saying literally it's 4:35, but it really translates to it's 5 minus 25. So basically you got it here. If it's the number If it's a number all the way up to 30, you're going to say son las whatever number. There are the 4 hours and 15 minutes. Or son las 4:15. But once you get past 30, it's going to go from 30. Once you get past 30, you're going to round up. If it's 4:20, if it's 4:48, you're going to say son las 5. And then you're going to have menos, which means minus. And then however many minutes you have left until you reach the next hour. So it's 4:48. You got 12 minutes until it's 5 o'clock. You're going to say son las 5 menos 12. Now, things get a little different when you only have 1 hour. Because remember, the question isn't really what time is it. The question is more like how many hours are there. If it's 1 o'clock, it doesn't matter if it's 1 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There's still only 1 hour. So instead of saying son, which you use to say there are, you're going to say es when you're saying it's. So if I say que hora es, you're going to respond by saying es la una. Now, the 30 and the menos son rules still apply here. 1 to 1:30, you're going to say es la una y 28. It's 1:28. But once you get past 30, you're going to forget about the whole es la una. You're going to round up back to 2. And you're going to say, if it's, for example, if it's 1:35 and you've got 25 minutes till it's 2 o'clock, you're going to round up to 2, and then you're going to say there are the 2 minus 25. Son las 2 menos 25. Alright? So, 1 to 1:30, you're going to say es la una, and then whatever minutes you have, whatever o'clock it is. But if it's past 30, you're going to keep the rule. You're in the menos son, you're going to do what you would do with every other thing. So, now you know how to answer the question, que hora es. Let's look at another part of telling time in Spanish. If someone asks you what time is a certain event held, the difference between que hora es and a que hora es is when you have the letter A or an A in front of que hora es, you're asking what time is something held. Whereas if you just say que hora es, you're asking what time is it right now. For example, if you're asking me what time do I go home today, a que hora vas a tu casa? What time do you go to your house? You don't say que hora, you say a que hora, at what time. So a lot of times Spanish speakers, when they're learning English, when they ask you what time is something, they're going to say at what hour or at what time. So if I'm talking, okay? So, for example, if I wanted to say what time is your Spanish class, remember we're asking what time is something held. So we're going to say a que hora es tu clase de español. And the way you're going to answer that is you're going to say a, las, and then whatever time. So if you want to say your Spanish class starts at 6 o'clock, I say, ¿a qué hora empieza tu clase de español? And you would respond with, a las 6. Now the menos son rules still apply. So if it's your Spanish class starts at 6:45, and I say, ¿a qué hora empieza tu clase de español? It starts at 6:45, so you're going to round up 1 to 7. And then you're going to say, okay, how many more minutes until it is really 7 o'clock? Well, 6:45 is going to take 15 minutes to really get 7 o'clock. So what we're going to say is a las 7 menos 15. So the same menos son rules still apply. You're still going to be rounding up 1 and subtracting how many minutes you have until you really get to that number. But you're not going to say son las anymore. You're going to say a las. So remember, guys, we have a qué hora, and qué hora es. A qué hora es and qué hora es. Qué hora es is asking you, hey, like what time is it right now? And then a qué hora is asking you what time is something being held. Finally, don't forget about how you're really going to answer it. You're literally answering it by saying there are the however many hours, whatever time it is, and how many minutes it is. So if it's 4:13, you're going to literally be saying there are the 4 and 13. Alright? But remember, once it gets past 30, you're in the manual song. You're going to round up to another hour. If it's 4:45, or no, let's say 4:46, you're going to round up to 5. There are the 5, and you're going to subtract how many more minutes you have until it's really 5 o'clock. So you're going to say, there are the 5 minus 14. Son las 5 menos 14. Alright, well that about does it for our Spanish lesson of the day. Stop by and see us sometime at the Kent Campus Foreign Language Lab, and we would love to help you learn Espanol so you can be flying high in the world of Spanish. With that, that being said, I'm out of here. Ciao. Bye-bye.